Hi everyone, it's Jules. Thanks for joining me for this VR to Lisa from Supportive Tarot. Lisa is a new tarot YouTuber and she is on fire, bringing us a bunch of videos that we can binge watch. And she's already done some lives and she has such a vivacious personality. You will not be disappointed with her content. So I will leave a link below. Please do check her out. This video response is to a creative tag that she came up with called Tarot Knockouts. And actually, I saw a VR a couple days ago from Darpin from the Mystic Aura. I'll leave a link to that as well. And it was so much fun to watch. And I thought to myself, okay, I have to stop screwing around and hop in on the fun. So I believe I will be able to get this all done in one video because I don't have too many tarot decks in my collection. The premise of the tag is that you take all the decks in your collection or your top faves if you have a large number of decks, and you randomly pit two decks together and choose a winner based on whatever reason, and then you proceed with the next two random selections and continue on with the process until you have narrowed it down to one final deck as the winner. I will leave the names of all of the artists and the creators below because I will not be able to remember them all. So let's get started. First two, Everyday Witch and Game of Thrones. This one's easy. Everyday Witch, I have edged it in blue. If you have seen my video on Everyday Witch, then you will know my history with this deck. I have grown to absolutely adore this deck. The theme is so much fun, witches and cats. It's fun to work with, and at the same time, not to be underestimated. It's such an accessible deck, and my readings have been so wonderful. Game of Thrones. This was a birthday gift from a friend. The reason I didn't buy this deck for myself was I thought that maybe it would be too much of a novelty. And also, I wasn't a fan of the fact that they kept repeating the same characters for the various cards. And I don't know that I would mind that so much if it weren't for the fact that there are so many other characters that they left out of the deck that would have made wonderful representations of the archetypes or the cards. So I haven't really worked a lot with this deck. I think the artist did a wonderful job with the illustrations. But if I'm gonna have to choose, the winner is Everyday Witch. Next two, Tarot Vampyres and the Naked Heart. Tarot Vampyres, edged it in red. So either you like this style of imagery or you don't. It's this sexy, goth, dark, thematic style of illustration, which I quite enjoy, and at the same time can acknowledge that it can be a little campy. But vampires have been a particular love and obsession of mine since I was in elementary school. I would say that this isn't the most intuitive deck for me. This isn't my vampire deck. I'm still on the search for that one. But the guidebook is amazing, and this is a deck that certainly needs a lot of time and devotion to really get to know it and to really get to understand the depth of the imagery, the symbolism in the imagery. But yes, I admittedly haven't taken all that time that it deserves to really dive into all the deck has to offer. Naked Heart. This is my working deck for September. And I really enjoy the clean and simple lines of the images, and yet at the same time, there is so much there that ignites the intuition. I mentioned in a previous video that my history with animal-themed decks hasn't been the greatest in that I don't pick them up very much. I'm just not called to use them that often, even though I really love animal decks. So it remains to be seen what the future holds between me and the Naked Heart. But for now, I've been really enjoying my readings. It's a very direct deck, gentle at times, and not so gentle at other times. So if I have to choose a winner, it would be the Naked Heart. Next to Mystical Cats and Shadowscapes. Mystical Cats. So my reason for getting this deck is not that deep. It's a cat-themed deck, and I love cats. There are other cat decks that are more anthropomorphized in that the cats are wearing clothes and standing on their hind legs, which anthropomorphized animals don't bother me at all, but those decks tend to show cats that are a little too lifelike in clothes and standing, so I'd prefer them to be more cartoon-like, so I opted for this style. Shadowscapes. When I saw these images online, I was drawn in immediately, and I thought that this was going to be my deck. And we were going to be together forever, and it was just going to be this beautiful romance. But actually, when I got the deck, I was still new to learning tarot and practicing with it more in depth, so I found that this wasn't the best learning deck for me because there was so much detail in all of the images, and at that time I didn't know that there was an app that exists that gives you way more insight into the symbolism of each card. So I had to put this away for a little while, and took a few tries for us to bond, but we did bond. And I just love the fantasy realm that I can dive into every time I work with this deck. It's just lovely. So if I have to choose a winner, it would be the Shadowscapes. Next to Tarot of a Moon Garden and Smith-Waite Centennial. Tarot of a Moon Garden. So this is a deck that Matt actually picked out for me at a witchy shop in our area. It's the only pip style deck I have, and that was the main reason that I didn't buy it for myself before, despite my loving the storybook imagery, the fantasy elements of the unicorns and the dragons. I still feel like I would like to do some more reading and learning about pip style decks. Smith-Waite Centennial. This is the only traditional RWS deck that I own. I was really resistant to the traditional RWS because the imagery did not call to me at all. But over time, my perspective changed, and I grew to really appreciate the images and the history. And I like this particular palette of the more subdued colors, and the backings are beautiful as well. I don't really use this deck an awful lot in readings, more for study and comparison. But if I have to choose a winner, it's gonna have to be Smith-Waite Centennial. It's my only RWS. Although that is my only pip deck. RWS. Winner. Next to Crystal Unicorn and Tarot of the Magical Forest. Crystal Unicorn. Lovely pastel color palette. The imagery stays true to RWS, except that instead of people, you have unicorns, and the unicorns have designated crystals on their tushies that correspond with the energy or the meaning of the card. This is my hug deck, if you will, and it brings out my inner child, and it makes me happy, and it's just so much fun to work with. Tarot of the Magical Forest. I've trimmed off all the borders. Here's another deck that stays very true to RWS. The imagery is so clear. This is a good, I would say, beginner deck if you like animals and you're not really keen on the traditional RWS images. I have to say the reason I have this deck is because hashtag Kelly Bear made me do it. I do think the animals are adorable and also a little bit eerie, which is what I like about them. It's charming in a way. If I have to choose a winner though, it's gonna be Crystal Unicorn. Unicorns, come on. All right, the next two. Ludi Lescott and the Sun and Moon Tarot. Ludi Lescott, I trimmed the borders and edged in black, so I made this like a little mini deck. Love it. This does have nudity, FYI. The imagery is very Southern goth, if you will. It's supposed to be based off of Ludi Lescott's time in the New Orleans French Quarter. I don't know if Ludi Lescott is a real person or not. It does have a lot of spilling breastises and women who apparently can't stop crying because their faces are always dripping with makeup. But otherwise, I do find that I'm drawn to this dark gothic imagery. There are a number of images that do correspond with the type of imagery I'm familiar with and used to, and then there are others that are not, which isn't an issue for me. But then you have a guidebook that is very obscure in terms of its meanings. So this has been an interesting journey with this deck. And actually, I am no longer using it as a tarot system per se. And I will get into that in a future video. That's good for shadow work. Sun and Moon. I have trimmed off the borders of this one as well, another mini deck. I love my mini decks. This is a Thoth-based deck, but since I've trimmed off the keywords, that hasn't been an issue for me in my readings. I love the color palette for each of the suits. This is a deck that I pull out in the warmer months, and I appreciate the diversity in that there isn't just white people depicted. It reads very well for me. So if I had to choose, I would say Sun and Moon. Last two, Dreaming Way and Llewellyn. Dreaming Way, oh, it matches my cardigan. This is a more recent purchase for me. I saw the images online and was very drawn to them. It's reminiscent of like a Korean comic style of illustration, which is different from manga and Japanime. And actually, I don't read Korean comics, but I'm familiar with that style of illustration. And so that's what I liked about this deck. And I liked the eclectic clothes that the characters wear, the people are wearing in this deck. But surprisingly, I haven't bonded with this deck as much as I thought I would. And I'm wondering if it's because all of their expressions are so pensive, which I knew when I got the deck. I didn't think it'd be that much of an issue. I'm not sure. I'm not ready to give up on it yet, though. Llewellyn, trimmed and edged in brown, another mini. This is the deck I bought directly after Shadowscapes. So I consider this my first true learning deck. It's based off of Welsh mythology. It's beautiful in terms of the watercolor style illustration. Just a wonderful learning deck in general. So for those of you who again, aren't called to use traditional Rider-Waite, I would highly recommend this deck. It helped me so much in learning and practicing and using my intuition and really diving deep into the illustrations. So if I had to choose a winner, it would be the Llewellyn. This deck has a very special place in my heart. Now that you've seen all my decks, let's speed up the rest of these rounds. First two, Everyday Witch and Shadowscapes. Oh, that's hard. The winner, Everyday Witch. It's everything to me, and it breaks my heart to not choose Shadowscapes though, because I do adore that deck, but gotta choose one. Sun and Moon and the Llewellyn. This one's hard, but if I'm gonna have to choose, it's the Llewellyn. We have too much of a history. The Naked Heart and Crystal Unicorn. This is harder than I thought it'd be. A Crystal Unicorn is the winner, because unicorns, although the Naked Heart does have unicorns as well, but I'm gonna have to go with Crystal Unicorn. Last round. Everyday Witch and Smith-Waite Centennial. Everyday Witch. I'm kind of starting to see the end of this tunnel and what that looks like in terms of the winner, but all right, the next two, Llewellyn, Crystal Unicorn. Llewellyn. So that leaves Everyday Witch and Llewellyn, which is like my nightmare.
2 hours later.
Everyday Witch. It's my soul deck, at least for now. Thank you to Lisa for such a fantastic tag. I had a great time making this video, and I hope you all had a great time watching and having a peek at my tarot deck collection.